My name is Gary. I'm your host at Mindset Growth Podcast. I have Heather, my co-host, here with me.
Hey.
Wonderful day here, isn't it?
If you're a duck.
It's been a rainy, wet spring, but other than that, kind of keeps us inside and getting projects finished, right?
Yeah. Been able to go get some stuff planted though, so it's been nice that you don't have to stand out there for a half hour watering stuff. So.
Right, that's true. Seeding a little grass down, and it seems to just be growing just fine. Mm-hmm. Without any further comment, we want to bring in our next guest, Christine Jewell, and I'm excited about having Christina on our show. Reading through LinkedIn profile and the bio, it's raised a lot of questions for me. And I feel like you're a strong person and an overcomer, Christina. So welcome to Mindset Growth Podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good. Tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from, and I'll let you just kind of, compartmentalize that, shrink it down if you need to, but love to hear kind of the background, what sets the stage for everybody.
Yeah, my name is Christine Jewell, also known as The Jewel, as Gary called me earlier. But yes, I am a faith-based executive coach. I work with a lot of impact-driven leaders, C-suites, founders who really want to establish more freedom, greater marriages. A lot of them come to me because they're more successful than ever and yet feel more dissatisfied than ever and are wondering, what is the gap? Why do I have all the things and I still feel like something is massively off? So that's kind of my jam, is where I come in. A lot of supporting people that are a lot in transition, right? From one season of life to another. That can look like a lot of things, from one marriage coming out of that, or business mergers, or just really feeling the pull to do something different. So that's the main body of work. And then I also have just authored Drop the Armor, which is my first of many books, I believe, that are going to be popping through. And my husband and I, my husband, Mark Jewell, and I also own a corporate coaching and training company. We call it Life Coaching for the Corporate World. And we are in the middle of a merger of our two companies. So that's always very interesting when you're a couple and you've had two entrepreneurs that are very used to doing business their own way. And now we're like, let's all bring it under one house, one roof.
Yes.
Super.
Well, it's fun to work with somebody I'm sure the two of you enjoy working together.
Yes.
And it's awesome when you can do that. I regret not having your book yet, because I love to, when I interview somebody who's authored a book, to have the book so I can preview it. So I guess at some point, if you want to send it to me, maybe we'll review it and have you back on. But why don't you tell the audience again, what's the name of your book and where they can find it?
Yes, Drop the Armor. You are on my list of people to send a book to, by the way. We just got our box right as I was about to head up to Canada. So I brought some copies here with me, but we will make sure that we get one to both of you. It is called Drop the Armor. It's a journey to release the past, ignite your faith, and step into an extraordinary life. It is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, all the main platforms there. But we are giving away the first chapter. It's called The Perfect Storm, away to all the listeners as a gift. So we'll share the link with you guys, and if you want to pop that in the show notes. But
Awesome.
Very easy to get that, so you can get a taste and a flavor for what it's about. See yourself in that story. And there's also a beautiful love story for all the warriors out there who are used to fighting battles their whole lives. So you can get that love letter as well as the first chapter.
It's interesting. I feel like there's a lot of entrepreneurial or just people who work really hard. And I know for myself, even you set these goals, and I think that's a question. I'm getting way ahead of myself already, but you focus on that goal of accomplishing something or achieving this position. And then once you get there, it doesn't provide maybe the happiness and the peace that you thought it would, because it's almost a vacuum or an emptiness because you've worked so hard to get to that point. So I can only imagine that's a lot of the clientele that you work with as well.
Yes. So. We're forever pursuing the next thing.
Right.
So I think, Gary, you did skip ahead pretty
I
pretty
did.
good
Just
there.
go ahead and get
let's-
me back on track.
Let's back up a bit, Christine. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what brought you to decide that you want to start your own businesses? How did you grow up? Was that instilled into you as a child, or?
Yeah, we all got our programming from somewhere, right? So we are all we've got the program. My dad was a super high achiever, high performer. His background was in the CIA, Navy, CIA, so was always very much a driver, achiever, a lone wolf, as you can imagine. You don't get into that by being like a team player. So was always just really on the hunt for the next thing. When we grew up, he was out of that, but was very successful from a business perspective, financially, had the luxury lifestyle. We traveled. I grew up in Europe. We moved countries all the time. So I would say I had a very a lot of exposure to different cultures, a lot of moving around, a lot of beautiful experiences, like always eating out, the finest things. When we came back to the US, my father also became, he got into the grips of addiction. So he suffered with alcoholism and still does to this day. But it was like the endless pursuit of chasing the thing that you think is going to make you happy, that only makes you feel more unfulfilled, more empty, And so the program for me was really observing him, his charisma, his energy. He was my hero. I wanted to make daddy happy. So I was like scoring goals, winning races, getting the grades, had the looks. So the program was instilled early on, like this is who you get to be in order to get the love and the praise and the affection. And then by the time I was 17, we actually lost everything. Our family home was taken, foreclosed. We went from having everything to having nothing overnight. My father was homeless, and it was a crazy time of my life. But at that moment, I was like, okay, if it's going to be, it's up to me. I'm going to make it happen. By the time I was 18, I was like, put myself through university, had my own car, my own place, paid for everything, like was making great money. And I have been in business for self ever since the beginning, because I was like, if it's going to be, it's up to me. So I have been in some way, shape, or form competing athletically, building businesses, doing things, I call it the world's way, for trying to get to that next place. And after decades of really pushing and building multiple businesses and stuff, and going through one horrible divorce because we built a house on sand, a glass castle on sand, because we were so busy chasing all the external things, I just was like, man, there's got to be some other way to do this that actually is not burning me out, exhausting me to the point that I want to burn everything down. But yes, to answer your question, Heather, the program was instilled early on, and then we just keep playing it out, So it was very good during those first years of my life to go out there and see what you're made of and see what you can accomplish and what you can overcome, until it kind of can also become a destructive pattern, I think.
Right. Often the things that are so good can become the hard parts. We asked everybody this one question, and I'm going to get back on track here a little bit because I think this will be a fun one. I know you're a very motivated, driven person. I can tell that already. But do you have a morning routine?
I do. And the morning routine has ebbed and flows throughout the years. I remember meeting Hal Elrod years ago, when the Miracle Morning came out, and I was all about that routine for a long time. I think that the main thing for me is just honoring that first part of the day is really a sacred time and space. So I was just sharing this with someone else. For me, the morning routine right now is really creating this space to connect and create and activate before I consume anything. So that looks like a lot of different things, but usually it's a time first thing in the morning of just, you come out of that sleep, you're in those alpha waves. It's so good. Your brain is primed to download ideas and visions and dreams, and to really find creative solutions. So I use that time to connect to the vision, to God, do prayer, meditation, and then also to create something that is truly authentic. And sometimes the creation is, journaling, writing in a journal. Sometimes it's recording voice messages. I have this thing that I do for my clients. They get a daily message every day from me. It's like a 2 or 3 minute message, but I might do a whole stack of those from really that inspired state. sometimes, whatever. Sometimes it's a recording for a podcast, but always try to create something before I look sideways and consume anything else. And then I do some sort of activation. So that is some sort of physical activity to activate my mind and my physiology, the turn on for the day before I consume anything.
Awesome. No, we
That is quite the, yeah, go ahead. That's quite the routine though. I like that.
we just see successful people will have morning routines. They just typically get into some type of, some of them can be more basic, and the big caveat is young children can often alter those courses somewhat, but yeah.
We have some questions for you, Christine, that you didn't see. Our rapid fire
Okay.
just kind of helps us engage with you a little bit more, give us a broader picture of Christine. So our first question is, what's your favorite way to relax or de-stress?
Anything to do with bathing in the forest. So anywhere where I can go for long hikes. I have the blessing of living in North Carolina, which is amazing. Half of the state, towards the western side is like in a rainforest. So I love to just go for long hikes, long walks, and just be in nature, unplugged, no phone.
Yeah.
Even do some barefoot hikes sometimes. I had a VIP client day down and we were going barefoot hiking out in the rainy western North Carolina forest, and it was amazing.
That's that whole grounding thing that raises a whole nother set of questions we could get into.
Yeah, grounding, absolutely.
But no, it's good. It's good to get back and connect. I love the outdoors as well, and that's where I often find some of my most inspiring things. The next one, what is your favorite thing to cook?
What is my favorite thing to cook? Anything Italian. I grew up in Italy. The biggest chunk of time for me was over in Italy. In fact, I'm about to go back for the month of July.
Wow.
So we love cooking in our house. We love communal cooking. My husband and I love to just hang out. It's kind of like a date night. So the Mediterranean, Italian, everything, especially now in the summer, is so great. So
do you do a lot of the wine and cheese pairings at all?
we do a lot of epic charcuterie type boards. We've done the ones that are like the whole table long where you just cover it in butcher block paper and you just have all the pickled vegetables and roasted vegetables and some cheeses. And I think the American version of the charcuterie boards tend to be more heavier on the meats and cheeses, whereas we have more also like vegetables and, different types of things. But yeah, I love those butcher block, big table style where you just cover the whole kitchen island.
That's awesome. Okay, last one. If you could teach any grade or subject, what would it be?
I would teach a subject that doesn't exist in school, and I would teach it to preteens on self-confidence.
Yeah.
I think it is something that is really lacking in that area when the kids are like right about, 12, 11, 12, 13, that they're just starting to have really awkward stage, really question who they are. They're coming out of that belief that I can be anything, do anything. And they're thrown into a system that just tells them who they should be and stuff like that. So I think what we really need to do is reintroduce some things around confidence, relationship building, life skills.
Right.
Yeah. And then to top all of that insecurity off, now we've got social media out there too. And it can just be awful for kids. It really can.
Can be very stressful. Get back to your book a little bit. There's a couple of things that I guess I'm curious about because you don't just, it takes a lot of work to write a book. And there's a lot of things that go, happen in our lives and probably we experience before that happens. What's kind of the thing you want to accomplish with this book?
Well, the thing that I'm really hoping to accomplish is to get people to interrupt the generational pattern, really, to interrupt the familiar pattern that just keeps playing out in a different outfit, right? In just another season of life. And what we notice is, I share in the book, like I was married very young. I was 21. I got divorced by the time I was 31. But then I went through another cycle of just another relationship that was basically the same original relationship, just in a different outfit. And it was the same thing in the businesses that we created. And so I think a lot of us are just recycling the same old battles, the same old frustrations, the same old stories. And we think, okay, well, just the next business, the next relationship, the next thing is going to make it go away. And so it's really about not only, being able to recognize the patterns that are keeping us, I say, enslaved and stuck in the grind, playing from behind, but to break free from them and really create a new legacy, a new baton that we get to pass forward to our kids, where we can be really highly successful and operate from a place of true peace and freedom, right?
Yeah, and I think the one thing I notice a lot is, and you've already alluded to it, we work so hard for accomplishment, and then we push our kids oftentimes, and I say I've done some of this same thing, certainly tell them they can accomplish anything, but we still push and try to guide them into certain areas. And that's not all bad, but they often end up replicating what it is that they still see us do. And so I can appreciate the confidence aspect of it. I love coaching young baseball players. I mean, I've done that, and it's just, but the confidence was always the piece that the days they showed up with confidence were the days they could walk through fire. And so there's a lot of that I think they tend to replay exactly what you were talking about. So you played sports, and I'm not trying to get off track too far here. I'm curious about, when you were playing sports, was that more high school? Did you do some of that in college as well? And what were the sports that you enjoyed?
Yeah, I did play a lot of sports in high school. I played a lot of soccer and ran track. I was not as active during university. That was kind of like when everything fell apart at home right before that. Okay. So I pretty much launched into a different era of my life. I think in that season, I was doing a lot more coaching and training in the gym, like personal training and kickboxing instructor and all that stuff. But I always had a love for cycling. And so I started doing triathlons later in life. And then I was in a place where I was come from the holistic health and performance background. So I've been in that since I was 18, and always training people, always coaching in some capacity, either coaching sports or training people. And so I started coaching and training also as I was training for triathlons. And then we ended up, I was a world-class athlete for years. Even when I had the kids, they were coming and traveling with us and stuff. But it was a lot because I was training like 25 hours a week and running a business and doing the mom thing and so, I love athletics. I will say that in high school, like when all the stuff was going on and all of the hardship that was going on, I really do say athletics was what saved my life, because I was hitting the gym. I had a purpose. I had something to get up for. And whether it was track practice or, I was the captain of the team, it gave you purpose. It gave you discipline. It gave you structure in a time where things were really chaotic. So I am forever grateful to those seeds because I think it's so essential that we maintain those things in our life. Now, I don't know that we need to be training 25 hours a week, or competing, but to have those elements in there and also just what it does for your confidence and physiology, right? So, but yeah, later I ended up having a holistic health and performance studio actually here in Canada for 10 years. So we had a bricks and mortar facility that we coached out of. And
Excellent. So you have really coached people pretty much your entire life.
Pretty much. Whenever people are like, what is your gift? What are you designed to do? I'm like, ever since I was like 15 or 16, I was coaching or, captaining something. So I'm like, God clearly put me on this earth to do this job.
Right. So you just find it, but is it something you find very fulfilling probably to see other people achieve and accomplish things that they maybe otherwise wouldn't? Or what's your motivation behind that?
Yeah, I think it's so, for me, like huge piece of my fulfillment. I was joking with my husband the other day. I said, I think I might change my title to just like transition specialist. And what I mean by that is moving people from one reality of who they are and what they're capable of into a completely different place. We've all heard that thing about the transformation. A butterfly doesn't remember being a
Right.
caterpillar, and it's messy in the meantime. But what I love about coaching is if you get the right coaching around you and a really great mentorship and a really solid community team, man, you start seeing yourself completely differently. You start believing things about yourself that you were doubting forever. You just start unlocking all kinds of new skills and levels and abilities. And we hear it all the time. That's why our community is so important. But it really is. We are products of our environment.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. So you've had a gym and you own that, right? And did a lot of training just like physically, and then you went into the holistic food and some of that stuff. The piece that you mentioned there that I think is so important is you start to see yourself differently. And at what point did your life shift though to where you started to say, I want to help people like mentally, not necessarily physically?
Yeah, so I loved, like I said, I was always in the physical side of it. And, I think that being an athlete, I always said this to the teams that I coach too. Look, like at the top, everybody's great. Skill set, talent only takes you so far. At the top, it's all mindset. It's nutrition, actually, a lot of nutrition, which I'm just going to throw that in there because a lot of athletes think, I'll just push harder. I mean, once you've got the drills and the skills and the talent, you've got to start dialing in nutrition. You've got to start dialing in recovery protocols, which is totally underutilized. And then I was like, then it's mindset and heart all the way. It's always mindset and heart at the end of the game. And so that was always, in there when I was coaching athletes. But what I noticed was as I had my bricks and mortar business and we were coaching people, we started with a lot of athletes, but then what started to happen was all these executives started coming in and, they wanted training, they wanted nutrition, they wanted to do the race or accomplish something. And what I started to notice was like, okay, these people have a lot of chronic pain and weight and backaches and, all the things that happen when you're under duress. But what started to happen was really, I started to realize that a lot of these people's issues was not that they needed another diet or another workout routine. They all had mental, emotional, or relational roots. So there was stuff going on at home. They were super stressed at work. They were having massive dissension with their leadership teams. Like there was stuff going on with their kids and like the cortisol levels were out of whack. They weren't sleeping. They had no boundaries. So it just started happening, as I started to transition away from so much of the physical training. I had team. I started doing more mindset, high performance mindset. I call it mental athlete work, right? Because I always have to say, if you're a high performance mental athlete. You want to operate like a high level athlete. Like they do a lot of work on their mindset, their heart, their nutrition, their recovery. So it started there, and then I just started to notice, okay, well, then that led into the relationship piece. So now I'm doing a lot of work really in their, relationship with themselves, their relationship with their spouse, and it has evolved. And I think that that's what's beautiful. As we evolve, I believe our business, the work that we do also evolves to match,
right.
where we are. So it brought me here.
Well, that just takes me back to when you mentioned to your husband that the title maybe should change to transition specialist, I think you called it. But truly, when you think about it, even mentally, just the name of it, thinking, okay, I've got a coach, great. No, I've got a transition specialist. That tells you right there, I'm going to transition. It's just crazy how the mindset can affect just your attitude of everything. And then and like the stressors you mentioned, like your body keeps the receipts, right? So
totally.
Everything that's going on around you can affect your body. So, and it's hard to get into, okay, what do I have to do to change this? I know there's an issue. How do I change this so I feel better? So that's great that you're doing stuff like that.
Separately, I'm Gage.
And I'm Bontrager.
Together, we are Gage Bontrager Consulting.
We work on changing your mindset,
Developing leaders,
building systems and processes,
helping you grow personally and professionally,
to achieve the success that you want personally and professionally.
However you choose to define success for you.
Reach out to us and follow us on social media or look us up on the website, and that will put you on a path to achieve what is missing in your life.
Thanks for watching this episode of Mindset Growth Podcast.
You know, another thing you mentioned was the just like the diet, the food, how people eat. I know for myself, probably 4 years ago, I took a conscious effort to focus just on my diet, but it totally did things for me. And I guess I want the audience to hear this. It changed things for me that physical exercise could not possibly change. I mean, I've got more clarity. My cognitive ability, I would say, is better. I feel so much better physically.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many things like that. And I think it's just little pieces where people just get into the routine and then just kind of like it washes them down the river.
Mm-hmm.
And then they end up at a place they don't know how they got there.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of intentionality, and it's really given me a lot more freedom in life.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you take that next one. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I just was going to say, like, I think that's the biggest challenge when, people come in and they just kind of wake up one day and go, wait a second, like, how did I get here? Or, or I'm not where I want to
Right.
be. And it's unintentional. It's a lack of intentionality about what
Right.
you want to consciously create, and it requires that we slow down. It requires that we interrupt the pattern. And it's one of the greatest challenges. I work with a lot of very successful people, and a lot of them are really running. They're scheduled from the minute they wake up till the minute they go down, and there's no room. And one of the hardest things to get people to do is to slow down. And you think like it'd be easy, like when people go higher up, like they have more awareness around it, but the pattern is the pattern,
Yes.
And so it's really like, it is probably the hardest piece of work, is to really slow down and ask yourself, what do I want to really create here? What do I really want? And it's amazing when you ask people that question. Not a lot of people can really answer that. They think they know, but they don't really know,
I think they so often, you go into, and if they own a business or work for a company, you do a lot of business planning and strategy. But when it comes to their personal life, they never sit down and really do that same planning. And they don't really have like the end goal in place. And we see that a lot with the people we work with a lot of similar types of people that you do. And, it's the same type of thing. They don't have exit strategies. They don't have 10 and 20 and personal goals, year goals. So anyway.
And how do you get your business goals to line up with your personal goals? Like, what do you want in business? What do you want in life? How do we get those meshed? And okay. I am going to read directly from the question here because I don't want to mess this up, because you have it on your website. You say, beyond the battles, strategies, and games we have been taught to play. Can you talk a little bit about that? And I know you kind of touched on it a little bit growing up. You were programmed, so can you just talk on that? And how it affects people?
I think that at the end of the day, we're all a product of our environment, of the environment we grew up with, and the programs that were put into the environment. Like, that is really it. Our parents were telling us stories about who we were, what we were capable of. We watched them. They role modeled the program or the blueprint, what a marriage is supposed to look like how the household is supposed to operate. And so much of it is unconscious programming. And we know this. This is why, the beautiful thing about mindset and the mind and our neural pathways is like, we can rewrite the program. Like, we are the only species that can rewrite the mental program. Like, that is so awesome. But the program is always running, and 95%, we hear this all the time. We're on autopilot. We're just repeating the same battles. We're in the same fight again with our spouse. We're like, are we really talking about this again? Like, we just talked about this like 100 times, And, so it's like we just catch ourselves in these loops. Are we really putting out the same battle, the same fire? Are we still dealing with the same employee issues, but it's just another variation? And so it's really recognizing like the battles that you are looping and stuck in every day in and day out. And if you want to change the what you're fighting for, you got to change the game that you're playing, right? And so a lot of us are playing this game, chasing the things that we were taught to chase. And so again, in marriage, we hear this all the time, but the battle over the kids or the laundry isn't really about that. It's over something completely different, but we're not addressing the real issues. We're not addressing the core. So that's why I say, like, we've got to learn to really understand. Oops, sorry, Lily, come here. I've got a dog over here in the background. Understand the nature of the battle that we're fighting, what we're really fighting for, and change the name of the game. Change the name of the game. And are we fighting on the same team? Are we even clear, like couples? Like, what are we fighting for? We're treating each other like the enemy, and we're fighting over who's right. The need to be right, the need for control, the need for affection or approval from the other person, instead of saying like, wait, what are we fighting for together that's bigger than both of us, right? That we get to really link arms and fight for together.
It's so interesting because really at the bottom of every conflict is communication.
Yes.
And yet we don't, we're not aware at the time when we're in the middle of these things, that's what it is, and what it is that just triggers us when this other person starts to talk. What are do you have any quick self-assessment things that somebody can do that you could just share that say, hey, if you feel like this is happening, here are maybe some questions you should ask yourself?
Like around a trigger?
Yeah. Like if they're in a relationship, say with the spouse, and it's just like, we're in the same argument all the time, and he's not going to change and she's not going to change. Truth is, we now know they're probably not going to change. Is it, how does this?
So one of the ones I hear most often, especially when I'm working with men, is nobody respects me around the house. Like my wife just does not respect me. Like I tell her things and she just doesn't listen. And so I just don't say anything. So we have this pattern of like the man shuts down and becomes passive, disengages. He feels disrespected, unappreciated, and she's not engaged. What's going on? And so here's the dance, right? Here's the dance. And it sounds so simple, but whatever we're feeling, if I always say like, okay, what I'm feeling disrespected, you're feeling disrespected. First of all, like, how are you respecting yourself? What is the story you're telling yourself? But also, how are you disrespecting yourself? And how are you disrespecting her? We hear this all the time. Leadership is reflection. Leadership is just a big mirror. Like everything on the outside is both reflecting what's coming back at you is what you've put out. And also it's what are you putting out now? So am I putting out an atmosphere of respect, or am I just impatiently waiting for my turn to tell her the solution and to have her do what I tell her to do so that I feel like she actually respects my opinion, And so I remember going through this a little bit with my husband, where I would ask him, sometimes for feedback on a project or whatever. And then I'd be like, okay, thank you. And then I would just go do what I wanted, what I felt was the best thing. And I remember him saying, like, why are you asking me this if you're not going to take my advice? I said, well, I asked you for feedback and input and you gave it to me. So thank you. I'm very grateful and I considered it. I didn't say that I'm asking for your input so that I can go execute on your input. I just asked, like, what are your thoughts? And so it's like, can we create an atmosphere where we can actually create space to hear each other out and not be so attached to, well, they didn't respond the way I wanted them to. Like, like, hey, there's room for all of us, all of our opinions, all of us to listen. And so that's a huge, huge thing.
One other thing that you talk about a lot is the holistic side of coaching. And I'm curious if you could just share with us a little bit some of the benefits and what you see happen with that approach.
Yeah. I mean, the word holistic, it's interesting coming from the holistic health background. That kind of has a connotation sometimes of, depending on which side of the fence you're on, some people are like, oh, is that, woo-woo, it's out there, it's all granola and it's not grounded and practical. But really it's for me, holistic means you are a whole being, you are whole, the integrale, like if you look at the Latin root, means wholeness, like it's holistic in nature. And we are, we have a mental body, we have an emotional body, we have a physical body, and we have a spiritual body. And I think that we do a disservice when we just address one area, the physicality of someone, without talking about what is their mindset. Sorry, come here, Lily. Sorry, you guys.
You're good.
She never acts up like this. But hey, we are in the times of Zoom and stuff like that. So
She just wants to say hi.
she wants to say hi. But we need to just remember that we are holistic beings. We're not compartmentalized. And when we try to do that, it's like that's one person at work and then another person at home and then another person with their kids. Like it's like an inner civil war. So I think for me, anytime that I coach someone, or the way that I look at it, is what is going on at the consciousness, at the mental, what's going on emotionally in the heart, right? Like what's going on physically and what's going on spiritually. Because this, if your head's in it, but your heart's not in it, it ain't going to work, right?
Yeah.
If your heart's in it, but you're not taking care of the body to have the capacity to execute on it, it's not going to work, right? If your spirit is crushed and, you're heartbroken and you have the mindset and all of the tools and the strategy, it's probably still not going to work. So this is about getting everything to move in the same direction. And one of my favorite questions around that is really when I ask clients, they're like, I don't know why I'm not making momentum. It's like, well, let me ask you, what percentage of your thoughts during the day, mindset, is geared towards what you actually do want to create instead of focused on what you're unhappy about? What percentage of your actions? What percentage of your emotions that you're feeling during the day? And they'll notice, like, percentage wise, they're all over the place. They're like, my mindset's over here, my actions are over there, my heart's all, I'm all over the place. And I'm like, you're wondering why you're all over the place, because you're not operating holistically.
That's interesting. I expected, go ahead.
No, the word that comes to mind for me is alignment, having everything in line. But
I guess I was, when you said holistic, I certainly was thinking
nutrition,
nutrition again. But out of those four you mentioned, do you see most commonly that there are two that people gravitate towards and they focus on those two and they let the other pieces go?
Yeah.
And can you tell us which those are?
In terms of the people that I work with, or just in general?
But I just think we see it in general. I'm going to, clearly our physical and is
mental.
One of them. Yeah. But that's one we probably avoid. That's
mental.
Yeah. That's not one people naturally work on. Is it that you see?
I actually see a lot of people focused on the physicality of everything, like what's the fight at hand, or they'll try to work on their body. I do see a lot of people working on their mindset. More so, I would say, or logic and reason. The things that I really see, they are probably ruled by their emotions, but they don't really work with their emotional body. Like, I don't think people are as intentional about cultivating emotional maturity, emotional intelligence, really checking the motives of their heart, like dealing with the heart of the matter. And most often the spiritual component isn't, sometimes it is, or it's very separated. Like they have this like spiritual thing over here, but it's separate from everything else. So, I think that there's always opportunity in every arena, obviously, to level up, to be more aware,
Absolutely.
to create more consciousness, and to create more awareness. But at least in my work, what I find is a lot of people actually that I connect with, they've done a lot of personal development. They've done a lot of mindset work, but they haven't done a lot of heart work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why they're wondering, like, where's the heartbeat inside of my business? I've somehow lost my juice, like my passion, the turn on it. Where's the turn on in our marriage? Where's the, and I don't think that's a mindset issue. I think that's a heart issue.
Right. No, I could see that. I just know it. I think from folks I work with, mindset clearly there's a lot more information out there the last number of years. So I think it raises awareness. And then physically, they of course, at some point start to not feel like they felt earlier. So they start to focus on that. And then, work just becomes a huge part for a lot of people, what they accomplish. So the spiritual side of it is, it's an area that I think a lot of folks are almost afraid to touch because, and I grew up in a very religious setting. So that meant something different for me for many years than it does today. You know, if I throw out the word meditation, you know, my mind can spin quite a few directions on that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting how cultures in small pockets can really shape the ways, and it comes back to what you said earlier, how our environment really helps dictate a lot of how we react and just keep repeating.
Yeah. And all the resistance we have, like even that word meditation, right? Like some people will be very like, oh, that's weird, or oh my gosh, that's evil, or oh, that's amazing. And it's like, well, which version were you introduced to, and what was the belief system around it?
I thought we had Satan worship coming up when they first were telling me, hey, you need to meditate. I'm like, yeah, right. You talk a lot about igniting the levels of love, peace, freedom. I'm just reading it. The highest levels of success, you know, will never provide. Can you talk about those things? And I've kind of paraphrased the question a little bit, so hopefully you get it. But there are all those levels that we talked about. Can you explain what you have seen when those all come together and get balanced, how that impacts a person in a positive way?
Yeah, you know, for me, certainly from my own experience, and I can speak from my own experience as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a wife, mother of 6, you know, as an athlete, oftentimes the program is like, well, if I just fill in the blank, then I will feel successful. If I get enough medals, if I win enough races, right? If I podium enough, if I whatever, if I have this relationship, then if we get married, then we'll be happy. If we will, you know, we always think that the thing that we want so much is on the other side. And it doesn't matter if I'm working with a newbie or someone that's running a 9-figure company, the psychology and the feeling of like, well, when we get to this thing, then I'll finally be able to relax. Then I'll finally be able to enjoy myself. It's like the carrot that's always going, you know, it's like chasing a sunrise or a sunset. Like, when are you going to catch it? Right. If I can just catch the sunset, then I can sit and enjoy it, instead of, well, can you just sit and enjoy the sunrise and the sunset from where you are? Because the very thing you're chasing is actually available to you right now, and you're robbing yourself of the experience. And so I think that when we, you know, instead of doing something to get to success, freedom, whatever freedom means to you, for some people that's time freedom, mental freedom, financial freedom, emotional freedom, that's a lot of things, connection. Instead of having this thing in between you that you're trying to overcome so that you can experience that, what if we begin to lead from the consciousness, the mindset, the emotional state, the physical state, again, the holistic state of operating from peace, right? From a person that is letting peace be the dictator. And so someone asked me this earlier, and I thought, that was one of my big switches. Is I remember specifically deciding, like, I am no longer operating from pressure to make decisions that hopefully will bring me peace. Instead, if it doesn't bring me peace, it's a no, even if it means I lose money for a season, because I'd rather be in the season of peace and let the growth come, you know, at a different pace, than try to shortcut and then pay with the pressure cooker that is stress and all of the things. And it's funny because initially I think some people, they have a hard time wrapping their head around it, right? Like, what do you mean I'm going to lead from peace and lead from freedom? But it's mental freedom is available now, right? Like the quietness is available now. The peace, it's available now. The joy, the fun date night, the happiness on a family trip, it's available now.
Right.
You know, and so if we can start to lead with that identity, it's amazing. We end up getting all the other things, but from a very different state. It's peace and profits. It's success with the freedom, you know, that you're experiencing along the way.
It's a lot of, go ahead.
We were talking about the growing up and the meditation, but even the word prosperity, you know, sometimes we just have the idea like prosperity, that's just like money. But the word to prosper just means that your journey it will be well with you. Like wherever you go, it will be well. Like it's, yes, you get the blessing and you don't have all the strife and the stress. It's like, it's like the journey is good.
Right.
And so I love that. It's like, I choose the path of prosperity. Like the journey gets to be good. Like, what if it gets to be fun? And we can do epic things along the way.
Right. No, I think too, so often when we think of that word prosperity, for sure, we translate into dollars a lot. Holistic, we translate into nutrition. We can pick words like that a lot that really take people's minds to different places. I firmly believe that we're going to have a better family, a better community, a better life once we can figure out balance in those relationships and really break down those words for what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
And, so often we're like, well, what you said upset me. Well, did it really?
Mm-hmm.
Or did it trigger another point that
Mm-hmm.
just caused you to be upset and you don't feel like you're being heard? Or maybe you're not expressing yourself in a way that other people are understanding it. I think one thing that I find is that we as humans really tell ourselves a lot of lies. And I don't know how that relates to what work you do, but I find that once we start to tell ourselves the truth, now we have a starting point and a platform in which we can work from, because I tended to, from my experience, use the word always, never. And the fact was that was not the case. I probably had once in my life that somebody majorly rejected me, and it felt like I was rejected always. And it was really one time. So along with probably a few others, but I think those are the things that I see happen that we get caught up in a great deal. If you're giving somebody that's listening to this, that's never really been down a personal development or professional development path before, what's something that you would give them just to trigger their thought and curiosity to maybe be open-minded about it and pursue it? Because it's not like, and I shouldn't even, maybe it's not like a multi-level marketing company where once you get in, you're in on the family. This is your own journey. It's your own path. But what's something that could intrigue somebody to take that step and try to balance out those 4 pillars you're talking about?
For somebody that's new, that hasn't ever thought about personal development. Yeah, I think if I'm speaking to the person that's just been in the program, doing the thing that you're supposed to do day in and day out, showing up, one more day. I would just invite you to consider, like, what if it could be even better? What if you could really be doing what you really love? And what if there is more available to you? And one of the things I would encourage too is just really thinking about when you feel most alive, most like yourself, most confident, most on purpose. What are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
What are you doing? Who are you doing it with? What kind of work are you engaging? What kind of conversations? And what about that lights you up so much? Because I feel like that's like a sneak peek, into what's possible if you begin to double down on those things.
At some point, you went from being this super driven person that was maybe doing, physical exercise and competing, and then you got over more on the holistic. And when you said holistic, then I imagine that was nutrition at that stage of your life. And as you went through and found this balance, how did that change your life?
Yeah. And I love that you said that, because the thinking of like, I used to be really driven, and why the biggest challenge for so many people to slow down is that they're afraid, like, I'm going to lose my drive. If I slow down, I'm going to lose my passion. Like, I'm going to lose the success. I'm going to lose the momentum. And I just want to assure you, nothing could be further from the truth. It's just that your drive comes from a different place. It's different fuel. So when I think about, I'm still very, very highly driven now more than ever, but I'm very I'm rifle focused. And the drive comes from a different fire. It's a fire in my heart now instead of a fire under my butt. Most people are driven because they're trying to get away from something. They can't stand a situation. I mean, we hear this all the time. We're always creating, always out of desperation or inspiration. most of us are creating something or building a business or trying to do something because we're trying to get out. We never want to feel poor again, like we used to when we were kids. We never want to be with a, person like our father. We don't want to be perceived. We never want to be rejected again. And so whether we're aware of it or not, a lot of us are aware of it, but we're actually creating from fear, from unconscious anger, from a fire of something that we want to be pushed away from instead of being pulled towards. And I would say that's the biggest switch. As I began to slow down and not always need a fight, not always need another mountain to climb, not always create another problem in my marriage, not always be chasing something, but I could also sit in stillness sometimes in seasons where it was just time to be quiet and let the next thing come through, let the next vision, so that I wasn't just birthing the next business idea just because I was restless and impatient and always needed to be producing so I wouldn't feel lazy, but that I gave myself permission to actually say, okay, I'm going to wait for the right time where I have ultimate peace. I'm really inspired and it's go time and I'm ready. I'm creating from different fuel. And this is sustainable fuel.
Right.
This is life-giving fuel. And so the more I move and operate and drive from this place, the more energy I have, the more creative downloads I get, the more opportunities come, the better the business deals are with way less effort. Because it's not me pushing, it's me being pulled.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It's
Yeah.
such an awesome place to be in life. Where can people find you if they want to follow you?
Yeah, so you guys can connect with me over at thechristinejewell.com. That's thechristinejewell.com. And if you put a slash and you type in drop it afterwards, so thechristinejewell.com/drop it, we're giving away the first chapter of the book, which is called The Perfect Storm, which was the breakdown moment. That was the breakthrough moment to the new operating reality that we've been talking about. And there's also a love letter. I call them the warrior love letters. There's a series of them inside the book that I wrote, just like letters from the heart to other warriors that maybe have been fighting battles their whole life and are wondering, there's got to be a different way to fight that is more life-giving.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you for joining Heather and I on Mindset Growth Podcast. We've really enjoyed this hour. It's went really quickly. I want to thank you for the impact you're having on the world and the work that you do, helping others improve the quality of their lives and achieve the success that really is true success. It takes a lot of people working together to make this world a better place, and this is how it's done. So you're doing it the right way. So with that, thank you for joining us on Mindset Growth Podcast.